Oh, it's the greatest thrill in the world to be riding a 1,000-pound animal 35, 40 miles an hour and hitting a little white ball.
Gentlemen, the most valuable player of the game goes to Gonzalo Pierres. Well played, and there's the golden mallet.
It's really a disease. Polo is sort of a disease. I never saw somebody getting out of polo, you know? You always see people coming into polo, but never saying, oh no, I don't like the game, or I'm going to change it for another one.
Polo has always been the game of kings, the jet-set sport, played where palm trees grow and champagne flows. But this image is changing fast. With almost 10,000 players in 35 countries, it is less and less a sport of the rich and increasingly a sport of professionals. The importance of winning the top-level tournaments, with prizes of up to $100,000, means that the top players now have to involve themselves with the game almost 365 days a year, either playing, practicing, or bringing on new ponies. On a ground almost 6 times the size of a football field, 2 teams of 4 players try to score goals without endangering any other ponies or riders. At high levels, 6 chukkers are played, each lasting 7.5 minutes and requiring a fresh pony. Allowing for a few reserves, this means that over 50 ponies will be brought to each game. Back in the stables, a top player probably has access to 20 or 30 horses to keep him mounted throughout a season. Every player in the sport is awarded a handicap, expressed as a number of goals, and reviewed each year by a committee of players. The handicaps start at -2 and go up to a maximum of 10 goals. There are only a handful of 10-goal players in the world at any one time. At the moment, there are 7, 4 of whom are Argentines.
To beat 10 goals is a lot of pressure. Sometimes you think that it's too much. But if you think that you are one of the best, you need the pressure to keep you there. My point in polo is really to try to be the best, to win, to make my living out of polo. On top of that, I have a lot of fun. I have all my friends around the game or in the game. I've been born with polo.
For 9 years, I arrived at the end of the year without anything. Now it's beginning to pay. But I'm 40 years old, and maybe I'm on my way down. The only reason I really want to be a 10-goal player now would be to be able to sit down when I'm 65 years old and say I was once 10. I'd like to do it for 1 year and then put me back again.
I always wanted to be 10 goals. When I got to be 10 goals, don't get me wrong, it was great, but in the spotlight all the time, you can't miss a penalty shot, you can't have a bad game. Every tournament you play in, you've got to be super well mounted to maintain the 10 goals, and the pressure is just too much.
The 4 positions on the field each have a specific function within the game. Number 1 has a chiefly offensive role, staying upfield to receive passes and score goals. Number 2 is the workhorse of the team, picking up passes and supporting the attacks of his own number 1, whilst trying to disrupt the plays of the opposing team. Number 3 is the centre half, turning defence into attack and feeding the ball to his forwards. He will often be the best player on the team, controlling tactics. Finally, number 4 is the back, playing a steady defensive game, protecting the goal and supporting number 3. The best player for this position is the really hard hitter who can send balls way upfield. Watching closely over the game are 2 umpires who have a tough task spotting the many possible infringements of the rules, often missed by the spectators. In very basic terms, a player following the line of the ball has the right of way. It is a foul to cross between him and the ball. However, by riding off or bumping his horse, an opposing player may spoil his shot or even gain possession of the ball, provided the angle of the bump is not so great as to be dangerous. A player may hook an opponent's stick while he is attempting to strike the ball, provided this is not across his opponent's pony. Alternatively, he can meet the ball from the opposite direction, provided he does not cross the line. The game is played with wooden mallets of varying length and flexibility. The stick must be held in the right hand, even by a left-handed player, and is wielded in 4 basic directions. All these shots can be angled to give variations. Hit by the best players riding at maybe 35 miles per hour, the ball can reach speeds of up to 120 miles per hour. Tommy Wayman played his first game of polo at the age of 6, encouraged by his father, who was also a top player. As a teenager, he turned to rodeo, but came back to polo, saying it was just as exciting, but lasted 10 times longer. He achieved the 10-goal rating in 1983, the first American to do so since 1951.
Probably the most important thing to me is the horses. I really enjoy making the horses perform to their maximum. You have to think about the mental state, keeping his mind right, because you're asking them to go wide open, stop and turn, run into another horse. At the same time, you're swinging a stick off of him, and a lot of times they fatigue or they just quit. They just throw in the towel. The first time a racehorse's feet hit the ground, there's 3 times his body weight on the front 2 feet. How many times does a polo pony do that in a chukker? A cutting horse will cut a cow for a maximum of 2 minutes. And we're asking this horse to do what that horse does for 7.5 minutes. So to me, the polo pony has got to be the greatest animal athlete in the world. I like horses that are 15 hands to 15-2, short back, long neck, pretty head, a short cannonbone, very important, good feet, a long hip, and strong.
nice, kindly, decent horse. Don't make it an orangutan.
Each horse is different, so a player has to have a game plan and an individual plan for each chucker. You have to really concentrate on what horse you're riding, what chucker.
What color, y'all?
And you know what your opponent's going to be riding, so you'll try to put your strong horses against their strong horses, your weaker horses against their weaker horses.
Come off when you call anything. Good luck, Tommy. Okay.
You can't just go to the beach. You've got to watch the competition all the time. Never play their game. Try to get them playing your game. A lot of polo ponies go to the left much better than they go to the right. So you see a player that's having problems getting to the right, you'll put all the balls to the right. Every position needs a special kind of horse. Number 2 needs a very quick off the mark, very handy, short bursts of speed. I have to have a horse that's very light in the mount because I'll get into a play, and if a horse is not quick and I can't get out, I'll get run over.
You just want them to where you can take 2 fingers in. Because when you're going wide open, it's going to take more than that. But if they're schooled to lightness, then you've got it. You just are born with it. They've either got it or they don't. Once you see that they have it, then you have to protect it. Don't be severe with them, but don't baby them either. There's a happy medium. We put halters on the babies and we play with them a little bit. It makes it easier the older they get to handle them. It takes a lot of time, 3 years, 4 years, actually 5 years before you have anything really good enough to take to Palm Beach. I've taken the very best mares that I've played that I know that are good, and I'm trying to cross it with the best stallions.
99.9 KISS FM, and don't call it love. Don't call me either. Not at this time.
Where the nose goes, the ass has got to follow.
She's natural. A natural makes a horse trainer out of a lot of people, you know. Patience is the biggest thing. You might have to ride the horse 15, 20, 30 minutes to get him prepared mentally down or mentally fatigued to where he will train. Then when he becomes too tired, you have to quit because a fresh horse won't learn and a tired horse won't learn. You have maybe 5 to 8 minutes a day that you can really school a horse.
Polo, once you catch it, you never get rid of it. You've got the disease forever.
Come on, this is a good girl.
I'm always looking for horses. It's actually very difficult to find an extraordinary polo pony.
Julian Hipwood learnt his polo in the Pony Club, along with his younger brother, Howard. His natural ability was so remarkable that he gave up his ambitions to be a professional footballer and has played polo for England since 1971.
I was always told the best type of polo pony was 100-mile-an-hour donkey. In other words, very quiet, but could do 100 miles an hour. Obviously, they have to stop and turn. Usually you get horses that are better to the left than the right, or right to left. But a wonderful one does it naturally both ways. And accelerate so you have tears in your eyes. There are very few about. You could count them on your hand, really. In the States, they're selling horses between $20,000 and $40,000. Americans don't care what they spend. I don't spend a lot of money. I just started trying to make my own horses. When you get up to a high standard in polo, you realize you're there because of your horses. The horses are probably 75–80% of the game. They all have character. I've had horses that have nothing about them that I like, and yet I have some that I love. It's because they have those little things that they do. They're like little people. Howard is a lot bigger, a lot stronger, a lot more physical.
Howard?
Hits the ball. You wouldn't want to get in the way of one of the balls he hits. I'm a little bit quieter. Maybe I cut plays more than Howard. We used to play very well together, but now we're usually battling against each other. In the States, it's a very competitive, will-to-win game. I prefer it here, the good fun of the game.
What do you want us to do, Governor?
Win. A lot of people come off that polo field absolutely thrilled, not because they won or they lost, because they're still alive.
Well, is that what we did to you last time?
They're thrilled that they've given somebody a good bump or hooked somebody's stick. The thrill of sitting on a horse, hitting a ball, galloping flat out round the field is unbeatable. It's just that wonderful feeling. Is rather like motorbikes. I just like the wind in my face. I like the feeling of speed. A motorbike is a mechanical thing, but now we have an animal that has a brain, has these 4 legs going all over the place, and has a, they don't all stop the same. The brakes, sometimes you can't reline them on a horse. There's so many little things that happen out there on the polo ground, amusing things or really infuriating things, that everybody afterwards they meet in the bar, they talk about those things, and there's a lot of leg pulling that goes on.
Oh my God.
Argentina produces more players and more ponies than any other country. Horses here are still bred in thousands and used to work the cattle, which provides an excellent training for the skills required on the polo field.
Argentina is sort of behind other countries, but that is very good for polo because you can still use a horse that I hear that in Australia and places like that they're using motorbikes.
Gonzalo Perez, the youngest of 4 polo-playing brothers, has been riding since he was 3 years old. Like so many top players, he depends on buying and selling polo ponies.
It doesn't cost more to breed a polo pony than just to raise any horse in your farm. The labor is not very expensive, you know. That helps a lot. The breeding of polo horses here is nearly 90% is thoroughbred. The good mixture is a little bit of quarter horse or horse that is very good to work the cattle. They don't need to be just built to run like a thoroughbred. You have to find the type to stop quicker than normal, not very tall, because that way you don't miss a ball. Athletic ability of the horse, that is the name of the game. I buy my horses when they are around 6 years old. They play maybe 2 seasons. I should spend 100% of my free time looking for horses to try to maintain your handicap. You have to maintain the level of horses. That is really the secret. You get very close to some ponies, but you need to sell them so you make your living. We are 4 brothers. The 4 we play polo. Since we are 10 years old, we think in polo, we dream at night in polo. Fanatic, you know. My cousins play polo, all the friends of the family. Argentina has close to 4,000 players because here it's very easy to play polo. The basis of why there are so many good players here is there are hundreds of young children that they already played a lot of polo. %70 of the good players, they have another top player in the family.
I think it keeps families together, and that's one of the things I love about it. That they have one interest, and then we all go the same place, and we sort of all have the same friends. Most of these are my sister's sons and my brother's sons. There's one of my brothers here, actually. He is 68, and he's still playing with his grandsons.
The main reason I play polo is because I love horses. The horse is more important than the sport itself. But when you start competing as seriously as we are doing now in all over the world, I think you have to be a good polo player, you have to forget about the horse for the 7 minutes you're on it.
Women in Argentina, I don't think there is one actually that plays polo. You cannot live the way that women like to live, you know, sort of clean. I think it's a question of costume.
But the male dominance of the sport is a comparatively recent aspect of polo. Mentioned in manuscripts as early as 600 BC, it is the oldest known ball game. Polo originated somewhere on the plains of Persia and was first played on tiny Manipuri ponies by men and women alike. Spreading through China and Mongolia, and then down to Tibet and India, polo acquired its modern name from the word pulu, the willow root from which the ball was made. In the 1850s, British cavalry officers first encountered the game in India and were so enthusiastic that they brought it home when on leave. The first match in England was played in 1869 on Hounslow Heath, with 8 players on each side. And such was the popularity of the game that it was even played by night. In 1876, James Gordon Bennett took polo to America, and it has never looked back. Once it had spread south, it did not take long for the Argentines, capitalizing on their flat, open plains and handy native ponies, to become the foremost players and breeders of ponies in the world, exporting both their own skills and those of their mounts with great success. However, following the Falklands War, Argentine players and ponies were banned from England for several years.
England, it was a place that we were sort of fanatic to go. Everybody likes a game and they love horses. You play, even if it rains, you play. Has a lot of character.
Polo in this country has definitely deteriorated since the Argentines have not been playing here. I mean, you imagine cricket without the West Indians. The Argentines are the best polo players in the world.
I played with his father.
We heard you fled out the bedroom window.
When it gets underway, you'll be in everybody's way, so please back to your seats.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Windsor for the Coronation Cup. England in blue, Mexico in green. And we're in for a big, really big afternoon, I assure you of that. We look at the England side. England. Number 4, Howard Hipwood, Superman of English polo without any shadow of a doubt.
Some horses are really exceptional, so you have to mark up much tighter to stop them escaping, because once they've gone, they've gone. Also, your teammates must know if you've got somebody in your team that can actually fly on a horse. You try to hit long balls because they've got the speed. Really super horses don't actually follow the ball, although it would just take a fingertip touch to make it. It knows that it's maybe going to have to follow the ball. When you change horses after a chukka, you have to anticipate accordingly. If you jump out of a Ferrari and get into a Mini, you know the difference.
Try and pick up Memo a little bit more, Howard, and I'll go for Carlos a bit more, okay? And just keep sending them up, and cover anybody that comes through.
Who's playing today? This your man bloody got him. It's your man. Don't let them turn, don't let them play. If they play, they'll beat you.
El caballo, ¿dónde está?
¿Cuál caballo quieres? ¿El llorón? No, el cromo. No, el cromo.
people it's the end of the world if they lose. They go home, they write letters, they cry, leave me alone for 5 minutes, and then I'm fine, back to normal again. It's not like a job. I wouldn't change it for the world. Polo is a very dangerous sport. I don't know, quite honestly, why we don't have more accidents. People are galloping around at 30, 40 miles an hour, all at different angles. You just need somebody who's a little bit out of control or misjudges. I've been hit out of the saddle by Tommy Wayman, actually, and I went into a wheelchair for a few weeks, then on crutches. I was out for 2.5 months. I had 50 splinters taken out of my hand. That put me out for 4 months. I wear a mask because I just don't want to have my face smashed in. In the last 3 or 4 years, we've probably lost 5 or 6 polo players. It's usually broken necks.
It's a dangerous game, both for the horses and the man. I've been unconscious for 4 or 5 hours. A lot of stitches. I had 28 stitches here from a polo mallet.
I had a lot of accidents, but really serious was the horse went over me flat out. If the horse will catch you before you hit the ground, that will make you whip with the head or will land on top of your head, the horse, then it's really bad.
You get injuries all the time.
I didn't hit it quite so hard.
It's no good worrying about them. Broken collarbone, broken cheekbone, broken... I cracked my jawbone about 2 years ago. But, you know, all these things, I mean, at the time, it's a pain, literally, but it's also a nuisance because you're laid off.
Acknowledged as the fastest game in the world after ice hockey, polo, not surprisingly, takes its toll on the ponies as well as the players. Apart from the inevitable cuts and bruises from flying mallets, the backbone and pelvis can sometimes be put out by the sharp stops and turns and violent ride-offs.
Those bones should be absolutely in a straight line like that. And where they've subluxated either one way or the other, then I'm straightening them out. That's what they should do too. Because if they're wrong, you can't lift that tail up. They clamp it down.
Claire Tomlinson has the highest handicap ever attained by a woman. Her father helped to revive post-war polo in England, and Claire now pursues it with extraordinary dedication, breeding and training more ponies than anyone else in England.
Claire Tomlinson, well, you don't give her much at all because she's too good for that. She'll give it to you.
You treat her as a as a boy, really.
The first time I played against Claire, I didn't know the lady. I didn't want to be rude or bump hard or anything like that. And the next thing I know, boy, she about knocked me down. I said, you're going to have to pay attention to what's going on here. This lady's come to play polo.
Some men will really try to rough you up, especially in England. The Argentines are always very polite, but you see, the better the player, the less they need to be rough. The more agile that you can make your horse, it is a continuation of your body. You've got to put your horse within half an inch of where you want him to hit the correct shot. It's rather like approaching a fence. You have to get the stride. You want it to be lifting its legs up as you start to hit the ball. Polo ponies, the good ones, love the game. There is absolutely no question about it. You can feel that their heart is totally in it. There's an incredible shortage of polo ponies. So we breed them and bring them on with the aim that they're going to play polo. Above all, I try to handle them in a way where they trust the person who's handling them. And this means usually that you get a quiet horse that's not going to object when you do something new. I sit on them when they're a year and a bit, and I back them when they're 3. I think if you take each pony at their own speed, there's no reason why they shouldn't all play polo.
There's a good girl. There's a good girl. I don't like any horse that kicks, or I don't think there's any excuse for that, really. There's a good girl. Hey. But I mean, when she gets going, she's not a donkey. Once they're 6, they've got to go and earn their oats. So open up. If they learn to shy away from other horses, then they're always going to do it. Come on. You can't actually get them to ride off properly until they answer to the leg, move away from the leg. You have to be on the verge of doing a half pass. Hopefully by the time my ponies play properly, they can do a half pass. Don't let her jack out. Don't let her do that. She mustn't learn to do that. Come on, push her on. Give her one down the backside. Come on, push her on. Faster. That's it. Well done. I usually make about 7 or 8 polo ponies every year. Time is the thing. Once you try to hurry it, that's when the ponies go wrong. Come on. Come on. No, wrong leg. Come on. There's a good girl. Come on. In Argentina, they tend to handle their horses much later. The time spent in the early stages is nil, and they try to condense the breaking in time.
El Pablo que se de juego.
In Argentina, they'll want them to buck. Their idea is that they've got to break the horse's spirit. They have to conquer the horse. And some of the methods are cruel, but it seems to work for them. You know, they get some very good horses.
Empiezan a brotar, seña que viene llegando ya el tiempo del carnaval, ya el tiempo del carnaval. ya me pongo a llorar.
As interest in the sport increases, so do the pressures on the top players. Often under contract to a commercial sponsor or a private patron, they travel around the world following the sun, playing for 11.5 months a year in 4 or 5 different countries.
You kind of lose your sense of reality because you're always moving and 3 months here, 2 months there, and I'd like to stay at home sometimes.
It's a lot tougher in America. The grounds are better, faster, and they spend more money on their horses, so it gets a lot more sort of brutal, harder ride-offs. Gonzalo Pires, he could die when I say this, but he's one of those players that doesn't bother to get out of bed until 12 o'clock. And he's one of the lucky guys who's just a natural. He can do anything and then just turn up and be brilliant. He just has it in his blood. Very, very quick. Anticipation is incredible.
When you play against Gonzalo, he's mounted so well, he doesn't have a weak chucker. He's got 6 very strong horses. So what you have to do, one player on your team has to get control of him, try to eliminate him before he ever gets to the ball. Don't ever let him get to the ball.
I think the best ability that I have is that I don't take too long to feel comfortable on any horse. Some people really do mind changing from one to another. I don't think you have to horses that they move the same in the whole world. You should be able to adjust to the horse in maybe 1 minute of the chucker. You cannot take longer than that because the game is over. The Hippon brothers, the higher the polo is, the better that they play. In England, they don't play as much high goal polo, and I imagine that they got this ability just dreaming.
Julian ducks his head and goes through people. Howard really hits the ball hard. Neither one of them like to turn on the ball or tap the ball. They like to play a fast running game. So what you try to do is slow the game down.
Beautiful neck, got it across the goal face. Hipwood can't pick it up, it's over the back line.
They're both really top players.
Tommy Wayman getting the first score of this afternoon's match, and it's now Ratama, Southern Hills.
Tommy Wayman, he likes sitting with the boys, chewing his tobacco and spitting with a can of beer in his hand, and to play polo with the people he likes. He has a very good reputation of making horses. He has wonderful striking ability.
He has one of the best eyes you can find in polo. He's very good to hit the ball in the air. If the ground is bouncy, it's no different for him. He's always very well mounted. The best way to play against him is to try to play a very open game. He's one of the quickest in the game.
You know, you never, ever play the perfect game. You've got to make a mistake somewhere. I think the reason I got better was because of the horses. I was able to make enough top horses to keep me a step ahead of the people that I was playing against. My horses play 6 months of the year, but no more than 3 months at a time. They last much longer than that. There are players, if they've got a good horse, they'll play at 2 chukkers in every game, 2 chukkers, 2 chukkers. Well, if a horse has got 1,000 chuckers in him over a 10-year period, you're cutting his lifespan in half. So I don't like to double up on my horses unless I just really have to. And, which maybe once a year I'll play a horse twice, and that's all. And my horses last longer. I've got horses that I'm playing now that have been playing high goal polo under me for 6-7 years.
Knuckle down! Come on, Tommy. Well hit, Mikey! Well done! Come on, boys! Come on! Stop being a hot dog, damn it. 1 minute? Come on, Tommy! No, less. Less.
Send that ball right to go. Shot, he's on the mark. Howie Wayman, former 10-goal player. And what a beautiful net shot.
The stock market high! That's hard to see them go, Harvey. I can't believe it. Well done, Mike. I can't believe it. How many times we've been to this thing and we've never done it?
I love that. I love the miniature one.
The press have built us into sort of jet-set, macho men that earn millions and millions or thousands and thousands. In actual fact, our life is a way of life.
I never feel it as a social thing. For us, really, all the champagne and all those things, you know, we take it as something normal.
There's some people that come to polo games not to watch the game, but just to be seen. But to each his own. The high society image of polo doesn't affect me that much because it's a living to me.
Polo is on the increase. It's on the increase here in Argentina. It's growing in the United States. I haven't been in England lately, but I imagine that will be growing there. It's growing in Brazil, growing in all South and North America. Even they're playing polo in Asia. In the whole world, I think the polo is growing. Polo is changing. Before used to be more a game to play between friends. I think now that you have to play to win.
The speed they go at now is out of this world.
Polo has done nothing but go up for the last 5 years. I don't know what's going to happen. I have no idea. Things are happening too fast for me. It's just grown by leaps and bounds. It's just incredible. I would think that the golden days of polo are now maybe just beginning.